I cried. I cried a lot. Hey, what's up you guys? It's Avery from A Very Avid Reader and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have never been here before, welcome. What's good? How are you? If you didn't say splendid, spectacular, amazing, that makes me upset. Let's take care of ourselves, okay? Today's video is going to be me talking about the books that I read in March. So I read 7 books in March, which to me is kind of an accomplishment, okay? I don't think I've ever read 7 books in 1 month, and I know for some of you even more avid readers, that's not that many. I was feeling really good about the fact that I read 7, and then I saw someone else had posted a wrap-up, and it was like 20 books in March, and I'm like, that just makes me feel bad about myself. But then I have to remember, no, we're not comparing ourselves. We're not comparing ourselves to other people, okay? So if you've only read 1 book this month, but that's an accomplishment for you, get it, queen or king. But I read 7, which is kind of a personal best for me, and I'm excited to talk about them. I read some really good books, like really. I read some that were super good, 1 or 2 that were just eh, but overall I had a pretty good reading month in March. Without further ado, let's just get started. Alright, let's pull up the Goodreads. Follow me on Goodreads, or let's be friends on Goodreads, however it works, I don't really know. The first book that I read was The Taming of the Shrew by William Shakespeare. So as maybe some of you know, I'm in a Shakespeare class at my university right now, so I've been reading some Shakespeare this year. This play is a pretty controversial one if you know anything about it. It's basically about a man who's taming his wife. So his wife is very opinionated, outspoken, kind of crazy, and he is trying to like break her and tame her so that she is a better woman and wife at the time. So it is a very misogynistic, sexist play, and I'll be honest, you might have to take my feminism card away, but I really liked it. I think you can enjoy old literature even though it's problematic, but still enjoy it for what it is. And that's one thing that we talk about in my class, is we talk about, you know, the sexism that is prevalent in Shakespeare's stuff, but also, you know, how we can apply it to today and how it really is timeless. And I gave this book 4 stars out of 5. It's pretty funny. I laughed through a lot of it. I think it was just well written with like the deception of people dressing as other people, trying to be other people. That didn't make much sense, but it doesn't matter. So even though this book is controversial, I liked it. And it's like, ooh, am I even allowed to like this? But I think if you acknowledge that it's kind of crazy, you're fine. You don't have to have your feminism card taken away, okay? The next book that I read this month is The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black, and this is the 3rd book in the Folk of the Air trilogy. So I have pretty much been keeping y'all updated with this series as I've been reading it. I did a reading vlog when I read Cruel Prince, and then I think I talked about the 2nd book, The Wicked King, in my January wrap-up, if I am right. I don't know. I really, really like this series. I gave this book 5 stars. I think it's really well done. And I think Jude is such a great, strong female character. I just like that the books are not that long. They're fantasy, but they're not like 700 pages long. They're like 350. This one's 300 pages. That's an ebook. I don't know. But they're just not super long, and so she just really goes from plot point to plot point to plot point, and I really enjoy that. I can't talk too much about the book without spoiling the rest of the series, but it's about a girl named Jude who is human, who has been raised in the fairy world, and fairies hate humans, so it's her navigating living among them and trying to work her way up through the ranks of fairies, as well as a relationship with the Prince of Fairy named Carden, and he hates her. It's a very well written story, and if you're into a YA fantasy novel, I would suggest this one. And this one doesn't even give super YA vibes. It's kind of for everyone, I think. But I think YA can be for everyone anyway, so we can talk about that another time. And the next book that I read this month was A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. I loved it, okay? I loved it. This book was so good. I knew it was going to be good, but I just didn't know how good it was really going to be. It follows a man named Uwe who is in his 50s, I think. He's not even that old. Or maybe he's in his 60s. But he is a grouch, and he is horrible to everyone. He's a jerk. A couple moves in to his neighborhood. It's a young couple who have 2 children, and they start to insert themselves into his life, and he is very reluctant at first, but it's about him and his relationship with this new family, as well as his relationship with his wife, which we see flashbacks, and it is so heartwarming, okay? The book is so heartwarming. I cried. I cried a lot, but not because it was sad. I mean, there are definitely parts that were sad and made you cry because they were sad, but a lot of it was just really heartwarming too, and you just grow to love the characters, and you just love all their relationships together. I think that Fredman Bachman is a great writer as well, the way that he really comments on some like serious things in life. He's not trying to be profound, but he just says some really stuff that just hits the nail on the head. So I love this book, 5 stars, love it. I will also give a trigger warning for this book because it deals with suicide quite a bit. If that's not something you would feel comfortable reading about, then maybe bypass this. The next book that I read was The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. And I talked about this in a haul that I did a few weeks ago or a few months ago. And I picked up this book because I was really interested in the premise. I'll be honest, it kind of fell flat for me, which is really unfortunate because it's about a real woman who seems really awesome. The book was kind of boring. So it's about a woman named Belle DeCosta Green, and she was J.P. Morgan's personal librarian. So she helped basically make the J.P. Morgan library into what it is, with just crazy famous manuscripts and artwork, and she was just the curator of the library, and she worked alongside him to make it really special. And what's really unique about her is that she was actually a Black woman who was passing as white in the beginning of the 1900s, and then later into her whole life she passed as white. And so that was a really big part of the book, passing as white in this elite society that was very racist. It's such a cool story. The way it was done wasn't really special. It was written well, but it just didn't hook me. Like, I wasn't drawn into it. I didn't have to keep turning the page. I think it might be more beneficial to just go online and read up about her because there's a lot of good information about her. It's a historical fiction book, so it is based off of her life, but also some stuff was made up. And so I felt weird like learning about her, but also knowing that some of the stuff was not true or they were just guessing. And so that felt kind of interesting. I really liked the idea of it, but I think the execution was just not what it could have been. But overall, Belle DeCosta Green was a bad bitch, and don't get that twisted. Alright, the next book that I read was Macbeth by William Shakespeare, which is also for a class. I feel like most people know what Macbeth is about, but it's about a man who wants to become king, so him and his wife plot to kill the king. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that they kill the king, and then they have to deal with the repercussions of that, and the guilt, and they're haunted by ghosts. It's one of the most famous William Shakespeare plays. And I don't know why, but it kind of fell flat for me this time reading it. I have read it before, I think, and I think I remember really liking it, but this time I was kind of bored. I gave it 3 stars, and I just feel like I was reading it and I was just like, I don't care about the characters. I don't care about Macbeth. I don't care about Lady Macbeth. They kind of suck. They literally just kill people because they want to have power, and that's it. And sure, at the end of the day, if you know how it ends, they get their comeuppance. But also, I think that it's one of those things where seeing it in performance is so much better than reading it. I do want to watch The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel Washington that just came out this year, I think, or I don't know when it came out. But we watched clips of it in class and it looks really well done, so I do want to watch that. Anyway, not going to talk about it too much. I read it. It was just It was very average for me, personally, as a person. The next book that I read this month was Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Y'all, obsessed. Absolutely loved this book. So this is a memoir written by Michelle Zauner, and it's about her dealing with the death of her mother from cancer when she was 25 years old. It's about her relationship with her mom ever since she was a kid up until when she dies, and their strained relationship, part of it being because she is a Korean American girl, so she's half white, half Korean. So she is just trying to deal with her identity growing up. But then when her mother dies, she wants to connect back to her Korean roots because that's who her mother was. She's half Korean, obviously. A way that she deals with kind of remembering her mom and getting back to her roots is through cooking. This was just so well done. Michelle Zauner is just a good writer, and so she wrote about this really tough thing that she dealt with, and she didn't try too hard to be super like deep or to make it something more than what it was. She just told the story, and the way she told the story was so good. I was incredibly emotional reading it. Parts of it made me laugh. A lot of it made me cry. Definitely don't read it in public. You'll be sobbing on the train. I think any mother-daughter would relate to this book. They have a very interesting set of issues that wasn't always relatable to me, but there were parts of it that I just related to between my relationship with my mom. Even though she's my best friend, we get on each other's nerves all the time. It was absolutely amazing. 5 stars. I've seen a lot of people say on Goodreads, like, I feel uncomfortable rating this memoir, or I don't rate memoirs because it's someone's life, and I do totally get that, but the reason I felt comfortable rating it was because it was written so well. You know, obviously I'm not rating it on like the plot or the characters because they're real people, but she's such a good writer. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than it was extremely heart-wrenching, but there was also moments of love and laughter, but it also really deals with a very tough loss, which is, you know, difficult to read about, but still I think worth it. I would say that this is probably my favorite book that I read this month. And the last book that I read this month was Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. This is another book that I've read for a class at my university. So this is a science fiction book about a man named Billy Pilgrim who survived the bombing of Dresden. And this book is really interesting because Kurt Vonnegut was also there and survived the bombing of Dresden. So you can tell that a lot of these things were taken from Kurt Vonnegut's real life, but he made this fictional character, and he has this fictional element of this character being able to travel in time. So we jump around a lot in this book to when he was in the war, and then later in his life, and then back to when he was a kid, and then later in his life, back to the war. You jump around a lot, but it's done really well that it just all comes together really well. Doesn't feel disjointed. I will say this book taught me a lot about the bombing of Dresden during World War II. I had heard of this before, but I had never really known any details about it. I had no idea that it did so much destruction to the city. It was really crazy reading about the ruins and the destruction that happened in the city, because you know that Kurt Vonnegut was there and experienced it, so what he's writing about has a lot of basis in the truth. I just think it's a really good anti-war book. It just shows the meaninglessness of war and, you know, how much it can hurt people. It does hurt people. And also reading this book really hits different, especially with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, and it just makes you hate war so much and hate the people who, you know, cause this harm to others simply for their own benefit. I give it 4 stars because I liked a lot of the comments that he made about war and about human nature throughout it, but it also, like, it's kind of a weird read. It's kind of a weird book, but you just kind of have to go into it knowing that. So those are all of the books that I read in March. I hope that you enjoyed watching this video. If you have read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are. I think that I definitely would say my favorite that I read this month was Crying in H Mart, probably followed by A Man Called Uva. Both of those books were both books that literally made me sob, so be forewarned. But sometimes it's just good to cry, okay? Thanks for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. Like I said, leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on some of these books. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you in my next video.